Bismillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man yattabihum bi ihsanin ila yawm ad-din, amma ba'd. I wanted to reflect on some of the videos about Hijrah to Morocco. There's quite a few of them these days. I've got a little bit of experience in this regard. I lived in a place called Sela for about a year, or a year and a half, about 18 months in total. That was from 2002 to 2003. And then I lived in a city called, a small town, or a large town actually. It's a large town, a traditional classical city called Taroudant, which is also known as Marrakesh, the mother of Marrakesh. And I lived there for until about 3 years. My oldest son was actually born there. So I've got a little bit of experience in this regard. I've seen a lot of videos, however, of late which talk about living in Morocco, making Hijrah to Morocco. And I've got a few observations on some of these videos. I just wanted to give some of my own insight into this regard. Let's look at one of the first clips.
It's quite isolating when you move to a new place. It's quite, especially, I can only imagine if you're by yourself. You're moving to a new country by yourself, you're not married yet. That's why I said in one of my videos, you should get married and then move. Because even with a wife, it's very isolating, very lonely. Because yes, you have each other, but at the same time, you need friends. And I've made a couple of friends. But as we've travelled more and I'm in Rabat now, I can't see those friends. And even then, they're new friends. They're not super familiar. But inshallah, they'll become familiar.
This brother, he mentions an important issue, and I'm glad he mentioned this because it is a real issue which many people don't really discuss when they talk about this whole notion of relocation, travel, hijrah, living in another country, which is this whole notion of isolation and loneliness. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Bada Islamu ghariban wa sayudu ghariban, fatuba lil ghuraba." Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Islam started as something strange, and it will return as something strange. So Tuba, which is tree in paradise, is for the strangers. So there is this feeling in anyway, particularly with those who ascribe to Quran and Sunnah and the way of the Salaf of the Ummah, of this feeling of strangeness in any case, wherever you are. You're always going to get a feeling of strangeness, even if you're in a very own country of origin, of your own tribe, as it were. Still, as a Muslim, you're still going to feel strange. But there is this notion, there is sometimes loneliness which can be felt, and I think what this brother says in his offering here, it's really pertinent, especially if you don't, for instance, if you don't speak the language of where you are, you don't understand it. Language is really important. If someone doesn't really speak the language, that can be really isolating. Now in my case, it was a bit different. I speak fluent Moroccan Darija, which I picked up over the course of that time, would have been over the course of 10 years. So it was somewhat easier for me to navigate things in that sense. Now some brothers, what they used to do was, and I used to do this like in sort of around 2002, 2003 time, is that I would only speak Fusha. But then as time goes on, you realise, this Fusha is really good for the people you speak to who are educated over there, or the people who have studied Fusha over there. But when you want to do more things in the broader society, and so your movements generally, and navigating things locally generally, so a lot of people in Morocco don't speak Fusha Arabic. So it's only the people who are educated, went to school, or those people who have studied classical Arabic Fusha, you'll be able to converse with. So you would need to know Moroccan Darija. That's daruri. Otherwise you're not going to be able to navigate things. And sometimes I've noticed with some brothers that they are fixed on, nope, I'm just going to speak Fusha. But actually you're not going to be able to navigate things. And I think you're doing that. It can come across as well as a little bit of snobbery. Like I say, I don't want to learn that language, I'm just going to speak classical Fusha. But that's not I think one would be hampering oneself in doing that. And there's no problem whatsoever in learning the Darija after, if someone, for instance, knew the classical. There are my two takes on it. But generally, in terms of the loneliness issue, and I remember a brother about 20 years ago now, who was a Canadian brother, but originally Libyan, and he went back to Libya. And he said to us, and this was over 20 years ago, I remember him saying to us talking about how it can be very lonely when you relocate and make hijrah and so forth. So I think that's something which really needs to be taken into consideration. And he mentioned all about the friends and meeting new people and new friends. He's absolutely right there as well. It can be really difficult as well in some cases, because obviously someone who's born in a different environment, different society, you've got different frames of reference. And when you're in a new country, new people you meet are not going to have the same frames of reference and so forth. Also, you might find some different issues as well. I mean, something like I notice even currently here in Ghana is that most of the Muslims here, they speak Hausa language, which I don't understand whatsoever. I speak classical Arabic fluently, but I don't speak Hausa. So now me speaking classical Arabic is good for me because I can speak to the Tulab in Ghana and the Mashaykh of Ghana, so I can communicate with them. But in terms of other broader Muslims, I couldn't really converse with them in Hausa. But the good thing with Ghana is most of the Muslims in Ghana speak Twi, which is the language which I grew up with my parents, and everyone speaks English here. And the education level in Ghana is really good. I think what the African countries is. The literacy rates here are really good, particularly after a few years ago, one of the president, he made education free for kids in Ghana. That was the President Akufo-Addo. He made education free for all kids, scrapped the fees, and that's boosted up literacy rates in Ghana.
So what about religious studies for yourself, for your children? Opportunities to learn or memorize Quran or learn the Arabic language. I know that the Moroccans have their own accent, or whatever you want to call it. So are there opportunities to learn like the classical Arabic and the Quran and even Islamic sciences?
So from my understanding, I don't think there's a huge culture of it. Like, you know how Egypt is, like everyone knows, okay, you go to Cairo and within Cairo there's this place and all the teachers are around there. I don't think it's like that specifically, but if you want access to these things, definitely it's very, very doable and it's available. So
the brother here says that there's not really a tradition of Quran in Morocco, or he didn't think that there was one to the level of how it is in Egypt. I would disagree with this point. To say that Morocco doesn't have a culture of the Quran, that's ba'id jiddan akhi, because there are many halaqat of Quran. The Maghraba have some of the best Qur'an around the globe. There's a tradition of the Quran in Morocco. There are diyul Quran in Morocco. They have also Madaris Atiqa in Morocco. There's a culture of Quran in Morocco, akhi. Look at places like Taroudant, look at places like Tetuan, Tanja, some of the well-known Qur'an of Morocco, like Al-Qazabiri, Hafidhullah, or Abdulaziz Gar'ani, Rahimahullah Ta'ala. Many other reciters, there's another Sheikh Yunus, and many others. I just mentioned there's a handful there. So to say that is, I think that's not correct, to say that Morocco doesn't have a culture of Qur'an. It might be different from Egypt in one sense, in terms of there's active ta'lim of Arabic. Like if you're going to go to Misr, I've never lived in Misr, so this is just about, I visited Misr. I visited some of my good brothers of Misr, like Yusuf Amriki, a good Yusuf Price, a good friend of mine. So I've visited Misr on several occasions, but I've never lived there. But there's more, it seems in Egypt there's more institutes to learn Arabic, I would say, and maybe more institutes and so forth. But so that's a difference. But you can still find someone who's got knowledge. And the other thing is, well, if you're learning Arabic in Morocco, it would be, I'd say, slightly more difficult, because you'd have to know Moroccan Darija when you're out and about, and that's quite different from classical Arabic. And so you'd maybe be able to find a teacher, but yes, it would. In the tatbiq amali in Morocco of classical Arabic would be far difficult unless you're in an environment where people are just speaking classical all the time. Not just that, but there were some nuances in how Moroccan is spoken. Even classical Arabic is spoken among some of the Moroccans as well. So that would be the only difference. But in terms of the Quran, yes, there is a heritage and culture of the Quran in Morocco. So what this brother says here in this regard, I don't think is accurate whatsoever. It's also important to note the main places for the tradition of Islamic learning in Morocco and for Quran. Those places are Marrakesh, Taroudant, Fas, Tetuan.
My first impressions of Morocco, I'm not gonna lie, I thought I would feel more, and I thought I would feel closer to Islam, and I thought that the people would be friendlier. And I'm not saying that the people were not friendly, but I thought they would be friendlier. From what I'd heard from other people, Moroccans were very, very friendly. And some are, of course, and some aren't. That's just with people in general, not anything specific to Morocco. But I think my first impressions, the natural beauty of the place is really, really nice. And if you're going on a holiday, you'd have an amazing time. But the natural beauty isn't enough for you to want to live there. And aside from the natural beauty, I would say that I was fairly underwhelmed in terms of maybe I just built up my expectations too high. I was on Instagram scrolling these accounts that highlight the best parts of Morocco.
In regards to what the brother says here about he didn't find Morocco to be friendly, I think that's quite sad. However, I would refer that back to the fact that it's maybe where he was. One of the things which has to be taken into consideration about, it's not just applied to Morocco, but because we're on the topic of Morocco, let's discuss that. If you're living in, say, one of the larger urban conurbations of Morocco, Al-Bayda, Rabat, Salah, even parts of Marrakesh, you are gonna maybe find that they're big, sprawling metropolises. They're big cities, they're teeming cities, they're economic hubs, they're financial hubs, everyone's hustling and bustling. I even see that here in Accra. You are going to find maybe some people not very friendly or not having the time to socialize. I think I personally saw that as well in Cairo, when I visited Cairo and visited some of the brothers in Cairo, is that apart from your own sort of circle of people who you know, is that you're going to find maybe some of the locals in those largest urban conurbations and big cities not too friendly and not too sociable. You can find that. I'm surprised that in this case that the brother felt the need to, or not felt the need, or he felt this way. What I would say, however, is that if he went to the south of Morocco, if he went to Marrakesh, if he went to Taroudant, if he went to, I'm sure the experience would be totally different. And that's where I would say you'd find the true Morocco, is if you were to go to the Sousse region. You'll find the people a bit more traditional, a bit more conservative, far more friendly. And also their deen and religiosity is much better as well, in my experience. Wallahu ta'ala. The Moroccans are most likely number one when it comes to their hospitality. Probably say alongside Saudi Arabia as well, in my experience.
An extremely safe country. The crime rate is very low. Violent crime is very low.
What this brother says here about the safety issue, yeah, this generally depends where you are, but be aware that there's some parts of Morocco still quite dangerous as well. You still have to be streetwise. You know, when I was in Rabat Salah, had to be streetwise as well. There's people who try to take liberties as well. You have to be on point as well. I remember 2002, that time. This is why I'm really interested in this whole issue about migration and illegal immigration and stuff like that in Morocco, because even at that time there were still quite a few people who were illegal immigrants from parts of West Africa going into Morocco at that time. That's 2002. One of my issues as well, I'm concerned about that issue as well, because sometimes when I used to walk around, it was kind of as if people used to think I was one of them. Documented migrants, and as well, that's why you have to be streetwise as well. As I remember at that time, people used to say, call me like a Senegali, and it wasn't done in a way of mahabba. It was done as a way of kind of and just taking liberties and taking a mick. I walk down the street and people go, oh, Senegali. So done in a kind of a racist way, actually. And I remember a few times I had to step to a few people and say, what are you talking about? When the Senegali here now? أنا مش كل واحد اللي عنده بشرة عنده لون أسود البشرة السمراء هو من Senegal. So I used to stick it on people sometimes as well, which on some occasions, and they deserved it. And if that could be caught on camera, the sight was very interesting. So yeah, you still have to be streetwise. There's still parts of like Casa, which are still quite, have to be streetwise. Parts of Casablanca, Sidi Mumin, Dervish Sultan, Lilia, got to be streetwise. I know some of the brothers from Bricks and Masjid. I think about 10 years ago or whenever that was. I remember the brothers told me there's about 5, 6, 7 brothers. They're walking through Casablanca through an area. I'm not sure which area it was. I was trying to ask them. They couldn't recall what the area was. And they clocked that there was some youths there. They tried to rush them. Not in a blatant way, but I think they tried to start something up. So this indicates you have to be streetwise. And there's still things like robberies and grisage attacks which happen in some parts of Morocco. If you're out late at night, that still goes on, stabbings and that kind of thing. So yeah, generally it is safe, but shouldn't be naive. Always be streetwise. Don't be naive wherever you are around the world. Allah Ta'ala.
For example, the lack of convenience, and once again, I'm from London, my wife is from another city in Europe, and we are used to a certain amount of convenience, and I know that when you make Hijrah, you make it for the sake of Allah, and you know that it's not going to necessarily be comfortable all the time, but it just seemed like that anything and everything we needed to do, it was just a hassle. Like, even to the point of I wanted to sign up to a running track, an athletics track, and it was always empty. And I went there, and there was a security card there, and I asked, can I run here? He's like, no, even though it's completely empty. He's like, no. And I said, am I able to pay? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, how much? And he says, oh no, you have to go to the city centre, which is like 30 minutes away, 20 minutes away, and you have to sign up. And so we go all the way to the city centre, and at the time we didn't have a car, so we had to get a taxi. Went all the way to city centre. The building for it, the specific building, is closed and the person is away. That's what a security guard said. And I had to come back in a month's time. I never ended up signing up because it was too long. Like, the process is just ridiculous. And it's not just that one time. Like, you get this same thing over and over and over.
Other interesting points, what the brother says about his reflections about bureaucracy and processes and getting things done. He's right. I think this isn't just something which you find in Morocco. You find this also, and I find it now currently in Ghana and some other African countries, maybe some of the Middle Eastern countries as well. Probably definitely is the case. Is that there's a lot of bureaucracy. They still operate things. I know things have changed a lot. I've seen a lot of development. There's more digitalization in governmental departments and offices, so that's changed. So bureaucratic processes and times have been reduced for waiting for getting things done. But I know what he says. I understand and agree with what he says about the kind of these processes. Like, he gives the example of like the wanted to do some running, goes to a place and then there's just a long drawn out process for something very simple. I understand that. This kind of, you need to go to this office and that office and then go to this office and maybe get this stamp and take this. So, and then get it stamped. Yeah, see it, Timbo. That kind of culture, that kind of bureaucratic thing. And it's interesting what, these processes that these countries utilize. I think it's something which is something which is continued and has been brought over from colonialism. Because if you read Charles Dickens' novel, Little Dorrit, and Dickens was very good at sort of social critique, and he critiqued many things which were prominent in his time, like how children were treated, exploitation of children, abuse of children, legal systems, inheritance cases, and the long drawn out bureaucracy around that, governmental and departmental bureaucracy. Dickens criticises, particularly, and in Little Dorrit, Dickens's book, he criticises kind of bureaucratic processes and kind of local government and government getting things done, and where Doric goes to, or the protagonist Doric goes to find out about an inheritance case, and he goes to an office which Dickens calls, in jest, the circumlocution office. And the circumlocution office is basically where Doric goes to find out about this case. And then the man says, no, that's not how you're supposed to do it. You need to fill out maybe some forms. Fill out these forms here, and then maybe get them stamped, and then you come back and then get another form, and then get all. And the guy at the office is bedazzled at the fact that Doric has the audacity to come and try to find out about a case. This circumlocution office approach is something which we still find in many parts of Africa and many parts of the Middle East, and probably as well many parts of Southeast Asia and Asia as well. Wallahu ta'ala.